Good morning, everyone.
Welcome.
It's May 30th, 2021, and it is Memorial Day weekend. So, Memorial Day, we recognize and honor all of those individuals who have given their life in war in the service of their country, and so uh, we honor them for giving the greatest gift of all, which is their lives. And So I'd like to start with a reading from Ernest Holmes. That's actually a prayer, and it's about finding peace and joy, even in the face of life's challenges. So the quote is from Galatians 5:22, and it states, "The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, and peace." We should look across the new horizon of the greater possibility that resides within each of us and meet the living God and feel the embrace of God's presence and come at last to know the infallibility of God's power. From out of the great mind that is God, the way of life is made perfect and straight and immediate. It is made happy and whole and prosperous. God's love always embraces us. God's wisdom is always within us, and God's joy is ours to share. Just as surely as tomorrow will come and the sun will rise again across the darkness of the horizon and spill its beauty and warmth to awaken the valleys into fertility, so shall this be a new day in our life, bringing us into a greater joy of living because of a greater consciousness of the Almighty within our own souls. And this is the affirmation part that you may say with me. I dwell in the house of love. My dwelling place is filled with peace and eternal calm. Love attends me in my home of the soul, and joy awaits upon me in the secret place of the Most High. My sorrow is turned to gladness and my shame to rejoicing. My tears are wiped away, and the sunlight of the Spirit shines through the clouds of depression and lights the way to heaven. And so it is.
And so it is. Our talk today, we talked a lot about what our talk would be, and the title I came up with is "Who Said It Would Be Easy?" And I think it's really it's a good topic for today because so much of our life is not easy, and we tend to think that it should be. We tend to move about as if life should be easy, and what's wrong with us that it isn't easier. And if you think about a lot of the things that we go through, they're not only not easy, we don't even anticipate them being easy. I know that, except for childbirth, which for most women is pretty easy. Uh, so just a little yelling and screaming, but nothing serious. I mean, if you think about giving birth as something that is painful and difficult and complicated and wonderful and joyous and a struggle, and that's kind of what life is. Life
Yeah.
is giving birth with all of the good and the bad and the ugly and the mess and the cleanup. And I think we've often gotten conditioned to believe that if it's not easy or things don't go smoothly, there's something wrong with us spiritually or there's something wrong with us mentally. And I think that's a big mistake. So the first thing I want to start off with is that life is not supposed to be easy. It isn't supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be exactly the way it is. I'm reminded of when I used to do a lot of cross country bicycling. Uh, I cannot believe the number of times I found myself wondering where the hills came from and why they were hills. What and
Who put these hills?
yeah, and why couldn't my ride be mostly downhill? And I think we get lured into this notion that life should be easy for us, and commercialism doesn't make it any easier. I was recently watching television and I saw a $67,000 Mercedes Benz, and it said, "You deserve this, Bob." And I thought, damn, I had no idea. I just 67, yeah, you deserve it. And I knew I did.
You've worked hard. You
I've worked
deserve a
hard. I
Mercedes.
deserve it. And so on my way to the Mercedes dealer, I stopped at the Big Mac because I deserved that too. And it's interesting that the non-verbal or often even verbal non-specific communication that says you should have it, you take a break, you deserve it, you're worth it all. Well, we are worth it, but it doesn't mean it has to be or should be easy. And so I think that's a good starting point.
I'm so glad you brought up the childbirth thing, because that's a
It's easy.
perfect example of life and what you can expect. Because everybody I know, I don't think I've had people say they had a great childhood, but I've never heard of a childhood that was uneventful as far as painful times and tragedies within the family and all of that. And that's just life. That's what we signed up for. I mean, no, we don't think we did, but we did when we chose to come here. This is a place of polarity. We have hot and cold and up and down and what we call good and bad, things that we like and things that we don't like. And if you think about the things that you've done that were the most challenging, that were the hardest, it might have been building a business, or it might have been pursuing your spiritual path, or it might have been getting a degree or so on. It None of that came easily. It came with hard work and sweat and struggle, and that's part of what makes the achievement so sweet. That's part of what makes it makes you feel good about it. So nobody said it was going to be easy. And this teaching of the science of mind, I've got to tell you, we have a simple phrase that says it's simple but not easy. In other words, the teaching is simple. It is done unto you according to your belief. That is our
Pretty simple.
teaching.
Yeah.
It's simple. It is not easy to live by because when good things happen to us, we just like to pat ourselves on the shoulder and say, "See, it's my consciousness. It's my prayer and meditation. Good things unfold for me easily and effortlessly and in grace and ease." And we love it when that happens, and it does happen, but not always.
When you go to the gym, the first thing you discover is that all of the devices that are there to help you become strong are what they call resistance devices, meaning that you have to immediately begin to fight the resistance of the weight that you're lifting. And the way a muscle is built is that the muscle is confronted with a weight that is greater than it can manage, so it grows to become so that it can manage the additional weight. If that's a metaphor for life, and I think it is, what that means is that resistance grows us. The
Yes.
resistance that we're managing makes us stronger. And I think we've gotten lulled into this notion sometimes that if there's resistance, we should say no. I say this all the time on Facebook. If they're not pleasant, if they're not nice, if things don't go, just say no. You don't. And I think, really, I think if people aren't sweet to you all of the time, just unfriend them. And I'm thinking, what we really need to do is to learn to deal with the resistance and learn to deal with the resistance and knowing that the resistance is what makes us stronger.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm sure you've known people or children who were kind of coddled and given everything and not expected to do any chores around the house or anything. It's not doing them any favors to have them not have some challenges. They become soft and not. It takes the challenges to build the muscles, as Bob said, that to build the
Mhm.
character even. So we all have our challenges here and there, and they can be in the area of health or money or relationships. It can be in any area at all. And the problem that we run into with as being practitioners of this spiritual teaching that it is done unto us according to our beliefs, where we're always checking, well, what was I believing and thinking and doing and all of that, is that you can make yourself wrong.
Mhm.
And, for example, this last year has been a painful year for so many of us. We couldn't go visit sick relatives across the country. We were dealing with their illnesses from afar. And so the thing of it is, I do believe that I create my life based on what I'm thinking and feeling, but I wouldn't want to not feel sad about sad things. That means I'm human.
Mhm.
So we get a little carried away sometimes with taking responsibility and making it self blame. We want to avoid self blame. It's just not helpful. So, um, and it's also not helpful to blame others. That's what most people do, when they have hardship. The human response is nearly always to blame people, places, or
So for
things,
others, yeah.
circumstances, even, but anything but me.
Mhm.
Anything but me. And but self-blame is also not good. So you want to take responsibility. Yes, I create my experience. Yes, life can be hard sometimes. We have challenges. We lose loved ones.
Well, I think what's important is to say, I don't have all of the answers. I don't know all of the things that I need to know in every situation to necessarily have made the best choice. So what we can say is I made the best choice given what I knew at the time, what I experienced at the time, what my knowledge base shared with me. And so that gives us a chance to update without making wrong. I'm always impressed because Judith is really tenacious about looking at foods and the foods we should eat and the foods we shouldn't eat. And I've been impressed over the years to find that some of those foods have changed. And that is this month, this is not a good thing to eat. And the next month, another article comes out that says it actually is a good thing to eat. And then there's a big argument about it, not between us, but
And then there are two camps.
yeah, right, yeah. And then there's and there's almost two camps about everything,
Everything, every single food.
whether it's vaccine or politics or religion or whatever. And I think, if we could take the position that we don't know what position is best in fact, but we know what position is best for us given what we know at the time, and then be available to change. What seems to be true for creatures that survive and thrive is the ability to change, the ability to adapt. And the ability to adapt does not just mean saying yes to something when you don't want to, or saying yes to something because you have no choice. It says I'm willing to look at more than one way of seeing a thing, and I'm willing to move into a space that is different than I had thought I could live in, and see how I can do that. It's to be creative in that adaptation, to be willing. Often we adapt and we resent. And I see a great deal of that right now in our society. There's an awful lot of, yes, well, I know the political arena has changed, but I'm mad, and I'll be mad until it's in favor of me again. And what I would ask is, if you're not happy with the political arena, as an example, then what could you do to make it better? What could you do to make your life better in that arena? How could you adapt and have it be good, as opposed to making it all wrong and screaming and hollering and stomping your feet until you get your way? And there's just very few times when a mental or spiritual tantrum has ever really changed anything.
So I'd like to get back to the area of Memorial Day and honoring those
Yes.
who given the ultimate sacrifice. And one of the sources of quotes I have is actually the Bible, John 15:13. It says, "No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." And I know that most of the soldiers that sign up, the young men who sign up, uh, are not going over there to willingly give up their lives, but they know it's a possibility.
Well, and most of the people that I know that work in the hospital didn't willingly decide to go to the hospital and work on a unit where everybody had COVID and people were dying and nobody knew quite how to stop it. And so we have a lot of people who've said yes to being on the front line of situations in which the risk was really high that they would die, and have died, but we're willing to do that because of the greater good.
Right. And then I have a quote from Rochelle Goodrich, who I don't know, that says, "On this day, make time to remember those who have fallen. But on every other day, do more. Put the freedoms they died for to greater and nobler uses." And
That's beautiful.
yes, I think that's important for us to remember at this time. And I think we also need to remember those brave line workers who put their own lives on the line to fight COVID this past year. We lost lots of wonderful doctors and nurses and medical people before. we knew before they had all the PPE, before we knew how to help end this disease once people got it.
We have a long history of people doing that and often not being recognized. I know when the AIDS epidemic occurred and we didn't know how and where it came from. And I remember the people that came to the hospitals to help the people, and they didn't know if they were going to get it. They didn't know how it was going to work. And we have a long history of people having the courage to take a stand for the highest and the best. And this really is a day to celebrate that and to celebrate that in you. I would ask you to look at the times you've taken a stand for your own good, for the good of your family, for the good of those that you love, and ask and give yourself credit that you have thrived in the face of adversity, and you've learned and grown from it. And that is what Memorial Day really is. It's a celebration of people that have thrived in spite of the conditions that they've been in, and thriving even through death.
Right. And I want to go back to that opening prayer that I did because, it addresses this. And it's saying that I know how to go within and into that secret place of the Most High, where I feel the connection with God or spirit or source or whatever you call it. Thank God our teaching teaches this, and we know how to do that. But that last affirmation again, my sorrow is turned to gladness, and my shame to rejoicing. My tears are wiped away, and the sunlight of spirit shines through the clouds of depression and lights the way to heaven. The way to heaven within is what that's referring to. Thank God we have that practice, that no matter what is going on out here, no matter what challenges we're facing, that we still, in that still, quiet place, we can just close out our senses to the outer world and connect with that part of us that is really the real self. Of Course in Miracles calls it the real self. That's the part of you that's eternal. The real self is your spirit or soul. And you can always tune into the peace of that, regardless what chaos is going on out here, because there's always chaos somewhere in the physical world. Count on it. Count on it.
Yeah, I was watching a lizard on the sidewalk, sitting quietly, and there was a crack in the sidewalk, and in that crack were a group of ants, and the ants were running in that crack, and every now and then one of the ants would step out of the crack, and the lizard got a free lunch. And I watched this for the ants. It was chaotic and crazy, and fatalities everywhere. For the lizard, it was a free meal, pretty easily gotten, and it all went on quietly. And there's so much that goes on, that life and death and survival and thriving, all of which without a soundtrack, without a sound bite, without music, it just this flow.
Major drama at that size, though.
Yeah, yeah, and it just happened. And I think look around and see that there's drama, there's beauty, there's aliveness, there's poetry, there's music, there's all of that all of the time. And I guess then the question would be, what would we give our attention to? If we give too much of our attention to that which is wrong in mind and in heart, we miss out on sometimes not only what isn't, but we miss out on the solution to what is.
That reminds me of another quote from Philippians 4:8. It says, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So that's a way we can always shift our
Yeah.
focus and our attention. Because even when there's drama and trauma and upset, there is always some place that we can pivot to where there is beauty and joy and right action.
Yeah. So then the question would be, for if we could suspend drawing to ourselves to a conclusion and allow ourselves to wonder what it's going to look like, what tomorrow is going to be, what it's going to offer, not continue to jump to this is what's going to happen, or oh my God, what if that happens? but to allow a different conclusion. Years ago, when I think I was in seventh grade, quite a few years ago, and I remember sitting in the back of the class, feeling dumb, and uh, and and being pretty dumb as far as academics were concerned, and watching a kid in the front who had all the right answers, who was always in the front of the room and always recognized as the champion, as the smart one. And I was sitting in the back of the room, recognized as the one who maybe wasn't dumb, but certainly wasn't fast or quick or sharp. And it wasn't until I think 15 or 20 years later that I went back to that community, and I went to the Red and White to do some shopping in
That's
the
a grocery store.
little grocery store. And I got all of my stuff. And at that point, I had my degree, and I had a decent job, and I had a house, and I actually even had a Mercedes at the time. And the young man who had been so smart was a bag boy at the front of the store, and had never left the town, had never succeeded. And I heard then the stories of the things that he'd gone through that were utterly failure after failure.
Hmm.
And I thought, this is so interesting. Here we are 20 years later meeting, he didn't recognize me, and I didn't outwardly recognize him. But I thought, we have no idea how it's going to end. We have no idea how it's going to unfold. But more importantly than that, I have no idea what lessons he learned. I have no idea why he signed up for the life he signed up for, and if he got what he wanted. I only know that what he got wasn't what I wanted. And I know that when I was in the seventh grade, what I was getting wasn't what I wanted either.
Right.
So it's it's easy to draw conclusions and say this is how it's going to work out. I can remember one of my teachers actually having me stand up and giving me as an example of a child that would probably be in jail by the time he was 16, and that was because I didn't turn my homework in, and there was a lot of other reasons that. But the bottom line is that that assessment of me wasn't accurate for my future. So why should I buy it then? Why should we buy that
Right.
assessment that other people have of our future or of who we are?
So let's end with an affirmative prayer, okay?
Mhm.
Excuse me. So join with us in consciousness and let's know the truth. The truth with a capital T is that there is one source of all life, one Father, Mother, God, one eternal spirit that is everywhere, included within every cell of our being. And it operates for us by operating through us, through the law of mind, the law of cause and effect. We may create our lives anew. And so we do so gratefully, blaming no one, and giving appreciation for everything. We know that life is good and very good, including with all its challenges. So we release, and together we say,
And so it
and
is.
so it is.
So we're going to unrecord now.